Hi, welcome back to Unity Spiritual Center of Lansing. If you watched our opening, I'm Reverend Sharon Ketchum, and with you today for a spiritual message. We're starting a new series called the Trance of Scarcity, and we're going to talk about belonging today. But first, let's get in the mood with some great music by our friend Eddie Watkins Jr. We did this music a couple weeks ago, so think you'll know it. Get ready to just start sharing that experience, that feeling. Just take a deep breath. Just move together here with Eddie. Just a beat of our heart with that guitar. Here we go.
Am I strong enough to bear the burdens that sometimes come living this thing called life? Am I wise enough to make the right decisions when I'm standing at the fork in the road? Sometimes I wonder and ponder, only to realize I'm not alone and there's nothing I have to do on my own, because I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. Will I have enough to do the things I need to do to take care of myself? Will I have the health of mind and body to live a life of grace and wholeness? Sometimes I wonder and ponder, only to realize I'm not alone and there's nothing I have to do on my own, because I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place. I am the place where God. You are the place. Moves and breathes and has. We are the place. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place. I am the place where God. You are the place. Moves and breathes and has. We are the place. I am the place where God shows up. Clap your hands and sing it with me. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up.
Oh, Eddie, that's just a
Can I have some more of that?
wonderful
Can we have some more of that?
I just hope that moved you as much as it did me. You and I both are the place where God shows up. So how are you doing? What are you feeling right now? Are you feeling relaxed? Are you breathing? A lot of us are holding our breaths. Still good, talked about that last week. Are you apprehensive about what's going on, having a little maybe anxiety? Or are you happy? Or fearful? Or feeling isolated? Are you enjoying life? You know, we are living in extraordinary circumstances. There is this worldwide pandemic going on that we're still learning about. Nobody has real answers to it yet. We are in the middle of an election time that is as divisive as anything I've ever experienced in my lifetime. And, there's also a lot of work that's being done on each of us learning to dismantle inside of us that systemic racism that has been built into our culture over hundreds of years. And we're waking up to the things that we are doing to make otherness within our society instead of oneness. So it's really an extraordinary time. It's a very taxing time. It's a time that really tests us, our belief system, our learnings, our commitment to awakening to that oneness with God, each other, and all creation. And as I look through all of the things that's happening, there's really a tragic theme that often goes through humanity, goes through me, goes through you, and probably is magnified at this time with all that's going up. And that's the theme of kind of, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm young enough, old enough. I'm not worthy enough for whatever our dreams might be, for an easier life, a more peaceful life, a simpler life, a more enriching life. Really, this is kind of the blight of a trance of scarcity, that there is a misbelief that permeates all of us, that somehow we live in this limited universe, and we just need to do what we're told to do without question, even though there's something inside of us that keeps saying, there's a better way, there's an easier way. But many times we find that really we're tolerating the things the way they are. And when we do that, when we tolerate our captivity into these misbeliefs, these illusions, what happens is we find ourselves breaking down instead of breaking through those barriers or challenges that might be in front of us. And it can make us feel really disempowered. It can make us feel exhausted, just totally exhausted. So this series is about stopping to tolerate our captivity into these illusions. And knowing that, as with anything that is really changing, it's not the most comfortable thing to do. In fact, kind of change is the opposite of comfort, is kind of a stasis, holding things the way they are. But if we can tolerate a little discomfort instead of tolerating a lot of captivity to these illusions, to these unworthiness ideas, we can have a real breakthrough into just a richer, more peaceful life. It kind of reminds me of the story of Moses and the Hebrews. And I know I refer to this a lot, but boy, it just seems like life is a lot like this story. The Hebrews were held captive by the Egyptians, and they were slaves, and they were doing work, and there was kind of a yearning for their freedom. But at the same time, when they were slaves, they knew where their meal was going to come from. They knew where they were going to sleep. There was a certain amount of safety involved in this stasis. Things were the same every day. They knew what to expect. Where in freedom, how do I eat? Where am I going to sleep at night? How will I be clothed? Just all these questions when you go into that wilderness of something new. So in many ways, we are just like that. Those slaves breaking free. Our thoughts are breaking free from the thoughts we've been enslaved by. So this idea of, excuse me, this trance of scarcity that we have, it operates on two levels. It operates privately within us. It also operates publicly with kind of the whole race consciousness of our culture. When it's in the kind of public thing, the whole humanity thing is kind of like a group think. And that's where we get these ideas of elitism, a disregard for others, that the otherness basically comes this idea that some are worthy and some aren't, that you have to jump through certain bars to be accepted, that you have to either be of a certain social economic stature, or a certain race, or a certain religion, or a certain political party to be the ruling thought, if you will. And then privately, what happens is when we live in this trance of scarcity, we're really filled with self-doubt. Am I worthy? And when we have the self-doubt, we can overconsume whatever it might be that we're consuming, whether it's shopping or eating or just trying to take something that's outside of ourselves to fill up this hole, this place where we feel lacking inside. And if you go back to Unity's first basic principle, that there is only one power, one presence. We call it God the Good, but this one power, one presence is everything. So we start thinking in this separateness, in this otherness. We have to understand that though we may feel oppressed, we are also the oppressor. There is no other. That is us too. We are all part of this one divine mind operating through all these individual expressions of humanity. And when we're living this way of separatism, it really keeps us from being at peace. It really keeps us from being free because we're carrying a whole lot of baggage. So this series that we're going on is kind of like moving from me thinking, little old me, oh little poor me thinking, to we thinking, to really understanding at yet another deeper level the idea of our oneness. Last week we had a conference with the Great Lakes region, and Reverend Jim Lee, he's out on the West Coast in Sacramento, and he was talking about, he was really getting into mysticism of the idea of the one power and the one presence. And where it hit for him, he's an African-American minister, unity minister. And he said when he really started thinking about the one power, one presence, and he thought about George Floyd, and certainly he empathized with George Floyd, but when he got it, that he was also part of the police officer that was leaning on George's neck, choking the life out of him. Really resisted that at first, but then what a growth when he could get through to, yes, there was a part of him in that too. All of us have a tendency when we're not living in total oneness to choke the life out of something that we don't feel safe about, we don't feel worthy of, we feel is other than us. So we're going to talk about how we get out of that kind of cultural common sense that there's a scarcity within our universe, that this is an unchangeable fact. There's only so much of anything to go around. And then we're going to look to see how this feeds into our own stories and how we embody our own stories. Do we grow from them or do we allow them to keep us in bondage? And then we're going to move into a cycle of abundance. How can we live a life of fullness? Abundance is about living life freely and wholly, and like the holy with a W. It's the juices of life, those things that just really bring the sparkle to our eyes, the little lilt to our step. In many ways, it's about belonging. Do you know, as humans, we are hot-wired to belong. From the time we are born, we learn about what we need to do to fit in, what we need to do to get mom and dad's approval, what we need to do to be accepted with our classmates in kindergarten, what we need to do as teenagers to be accepted, as adults to be accepted at our work or within our family. This is constantly taught to us. It's like we're hardwired to kind of audition to be a part of what we deem as our in-group, whatever that might be. And, you know, we get these messages not only from our parents, but we get them from different religious things that we learn. We get them from political messages. We get them from cultural messages. We certainly get them from ads. You know, if we want to feel better, use this deodorant, use this toothpaste, whatever it might be. And it's really interesting that we're so hardwired for this belonging, because at the same time, I think we're also hardwired that we really have difficulty seeing anybody suffer. And we all want to relieve the suffering of others. But we can't do for others what we can't do for ourselves. So until we can find that way to relieve ourselves of the suffering from thinking of ourselves as unworthy, we're not going to be real effective with helping others ease their suffering. It's really about achieving a state of freedom, which happens to be our core value for this month, that state of freedom. And I love the line that says, if struggling were a way to get there, we'd all be there by now. If struggling were a way to get into that land of freedom, we would all be there by now. And part of us carry that story is that in order anything good to happen, we have to struggle, work hard, blood, sweat, and tears. We have to earn it by working really, really hard, as opposed to physically, as opposed to developing a better state of consciousness, a more loving, more inclusive state of consciousness. So we're going to start with that basic question about, am I in or am I out? It sounds like kind of one of those reality shows where, one day you're in and one day you're out, or you're voted off the island or whatever. You don't make the cut. And when we might have these feelings about, do I belong? And boy, is it hard right now that since we can't physically kind of be in our groups. But if you think about it, who decides if we belong? And what does it take to belong? And, when we're not with each other, all the social norms that we have learned before no longer really apply, but the feelings that kind of still kick in. And for example, you might have friends that normally stop by every week, every month, whatever that might be, and they're not stopping by anymore. They're not inviting you to their house. And you think, wow, don't they like me anymore? What, did I do something to offend them? Did I do something wrong? No, we're living in a pandemic. We're being told to be safe and stay physically distanced. But all of a sudden, all the rules that we had caught up about how do we know we belong and who decides if we belong, they've just been dissolved. They've just gone out the window. None of those are really in effect, but the emotions that were connected with those behaviors are still in effect with us. So though nothing may have changed in our relationships with friends and family, know that how that shows up has changed. And we can step into that misbelief that somehow we've done something wrong. Somehow we're no longer lovable, or we're not part of the inner circle, if you will. Still, many of us are convinced we didn't make the cut, if you will. We're not part of that group. And so we can invest a lot of time kind of auditioning for approval, trying out those things to see, will I be accepted? Will they still include me in their circle? Am I still worthy of, of their friendship or their time or their energy? Einstein was once asked, if you could ask the universe a question and get an answer, what question would you ask? And he thought a while. He said, I would ask if the universe was friendly. I would ask if the universe was friendly. And in a sense, we ask that question all the time. We really do. Sometimes it feels we have a belief that the universe is out to get us. This could have been from religious norms that we were taught growing up, that somebody was keeping track in the big book of when we messed up, when we didn't do the kindest thing, the most loving thing. But when we think that the universe is not friendly, think about really how that reacts to our belief system, that somewhere out there are hostile forces just waiting to take us down, waiting to trip us up, waiting to punish us, to make us suffer, as you will. It's really this deep, deep impoverishment of what we're capable of being, because it reduces our life force when we believe the universe is against us. Our life force becomes a whisper instead of a shout in a gigantic song. I think it's like wearing a t-shirt that said, I am unworthy. I am unworthy. You're just telling the whole universe there, and you cower down. Kind of like I think of dogs, when they've done something bad, and if you yell at them, and they get so ashamed. And many of us have times in our life we may not be on the floor, but inside we're on the floor. We've diminished ourselves because we really think that we're not worthy to this universe that is out to get us, this universe that is hostile towards us, this universe that is going to reject us. We're not even going to try because we know we're going to be rejected. And sometimes we even find ways to go numb so we don't feel this imagined hurt that we're always living in. But if you believe that the universe is for you, it's a friendly universe, that it's a universe that is always kind of like loaded dice towards life. It's always going to give you the benefit towards the good being life, the good being joy, the good being peace. Life becomes more like a party. It's like we are ready to meet old friends, and we're ready to meet new friends because we know the universe is for us. The universe is a creative force that's working in and through us. And when we stand in that flow and we take that mindset, we get it that this is not a limited universe, that our good takes nothing away from others. We don't have to be more worthy than another person to receive good in our life. There is plenty to go around. And we step into that stream of resources, of ideas, of connections, of possibilities. We become an Imagineer. And there is no disputing that we belong, because we are one with that creative force. We are one with the universe. We are filled with freedom to create. We're filled with possibilities of all the things that can go in life. And life has meaning to us. There's a purpose for us living. It's not about auditioning for others. There is a driving force, a fountain inside of us that just fills us up with a joy and a radiance that adds not only to our own life, but lifts up others. We get to be this great buoyancy factor in the life of humanity. We really make this unique contribution to humanity in the whole world, no matter where we are. So Reverend Gary Simmons, he had a book, I think it was in a book about, to believe there is nothing and no one against you. Nothing and no one against you. And most of us don't really believe that. We'll say nothing and no one against me, except maybe this, maybe that. We have this tendency to see adversarial forces at work, whether it be a virus, or whether it be a political thing, or whether it be a racial consciousness that we're working through to heal. So I'm going to ask you to imagine something right now. It's a beautiful autumn day, and you see this field. It's a magnificent field. Just the colors are turning, the fall flowers are out, there's streams going through it. It's just the most magnificent place, and it's one of those autumn days where the sun is shining. It's just the perfect temperature, and you just feel welcome to step into that circle. Well, the circle is not a circle of boundaries. It is a circle of energy of the universe. And I'm using the term circle because whenever I do weddings, talk about wedding rings, it's a circle. A ring is a circle, so it has no beginning or end. So this energy of that kind of perfect peace, that beauty, that just gorgeous radiance of nature is without beginning or without end. And it is also without boundaries. We can simply just step into it. It is an energy where we have satisfying relationships, where we have meaning for whatever work that we do, that we have inspired learning. We read something that just excites our mind and wants us to explore farther, to find out more about humanity. We become curious about life. This is that great, wonderful involvement. We understand that resources and opportunities are not limited, that there are infinite channels, that the infinite source that we call God flows through into our life. That it is just like that wonderful feeling we would have standing in that beautiful field. There are no boundaries, but there's this great energy moving through us. And the great part is you don't need any baggage there. Drop your baggage before you step in. That allows you to step in. You don't have to bring any emotional baggage with you. And it's a place where you want to laugh, not because there was particularly a funny thing happening, but because you're just so filled with joy and exuberance and ease. And every time a problem pops up, and problems pop up even in this magnificent energy field, we see it and understand it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity for moving to a next step. I think of our life here at the Unity Church. We felt like it was such a problem in trying to get our building restored that we hit wall after wall after wall. But then after a year had passed, after we had wandered in our wilderness, much like the Hebrews wandered in the wilderness with Moses looking for the promised land, where we had reached our last option and realized we could not do what we thought was ours to do, this wonderful opportunity opened up with this beautiful piece of land with a lake and nature. It's just more magnificent than anything we ever imagined. And that's what it is in this circle, this field of opportunity. Stepping into this circle is not determined by your worthiness. But I will warn you, because you may hear alarms going off, and it's kind of the do not disturb comfort zone alarm. Beep, 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 beep. Do not disturb comfort zone. Because you do need to give up your comfort of suffering. And maybe you don't recognize it as suffering. Maybe it's the comfort of isolation. Maybe it's the comfort of being self-handicapped, so you don't expect too much of yourself. You just figure that, yeah, when God got you, it's kind of a mediocre creation. But when we can honestly step into that circle, knowing that we don't have to audition for it, that we are worthy just because we are, because God does not make garbage, we can step into that. We stop becoming a consumer. We stop becoming someone looking for that adversary, and we start becoming generators. And that joy and that creativity and the possibilities that we create within ourselves, like I said, go on to bless everyone, because there are no others. There is this oneness, this interconnectedness. We enrich the circle of humanity. We enrich our neighbors wherever they may be. Arthur Sokolov said, from the moment we cease trying to swim upstream to being in the flow with the current, something changes in us. From the moment we stop trying to swim upstream and instead go in with the flow, something changes within us. Feel that. Feel what it'd be like if it wasn't a struggle. Feel what it would be like if you just be in the presence of peace and love. If you could just be perfect and wonderful as you are, nothing to strive for, nothing to audition for. You are God's gift to the world. You are a divine creation. So when we're not in that circle, when we are back into unworthiness, it's like, I can't step into that circle because then I would have to be open to everybody. I don't know that I could do that. I don't know that I could accept everybody as being one with me. By matter of fact, part of that alarm thing going off might be, I don't even know if I can accept all of me. Could I leave parts of me outside of the circle? Make that the other? No, it's about bringing it all in and knowing that all of it is a possibility. All of it is a gift. It's like, we have been told that the world is kind of combative, that it's competitive, that we have to beat out the other person, that we need to wait our turn, that we need to really fight for what we want. And I know I have a story in the back of my head that sometimes goes on, that I should be grateful just to survive. I should be grateful that I have a roof over my head, that I have food. There are kids starving in other parts of the world. I should be grateful just for that. But that is not what we were created for. We were created just to survive. We were created to thrive, because it's in the thriving that we lift up everyone. When I was at Unity in Kitchener, the board before me had set up a rainy day fund. And it was like, there's going to be a rainy day someday, so we got this little fund for it. Well, because they had a rainy day fund, of course they had a rainy day, a disaster, whatever that is. So that's an idea that happens outside the circle, where the universe is going to get you somehow, sometime, so you're going to be prepared for it. Think about how the energy feels when you have a growth and development fund, that you have the resources, whether it be in your own life or our life as a church community, that we have the resources to be prepared for the possibilities that present itself to us, that we can grow that garden as opposed to try to hoard what we have just in case something goes terribly wrong. Not enough is a survival mode thinking. What we want to do is get into this idea where outside of separation, there is a oneness that really generates a success in the sense of thriving with a deep sense of peace, a deep sense of freedom at the core of our being. So there's a circle. Sometimes we feel in the circle, sometimes we feel outside of the circle. One way to get out of the circle really fast, to get out of that creative flow of energy, that creative flow of oneness, is I'm not enough, nobody cares, out of the circle. Or how about, it's too hard, I don't deserve it, out of the circle. Or just, okay, I see why they're there, but I don't belong. I don't belong in that circle. I'm not good enough, whatever it is. Well, Nathaniel Braden said, if my aim is to prove I am enough, the project goes on to infinity because the battle is already lost on the day I conceded the issue was debatable. The battle of proving you're worthy is lost on the day that you concede that it is debatable. Your worthiness is not debatable. You are enough. You are always enough. You are worthy. You have all that you need to not only survive, but to thrive. You were born with it. You never lost it. This is a friendly universe. Everything is behind you. But on those days when we have those random thoughts that take us out of the circle, how do we get back in? Well, here's the quick pass back in. You know, like you get the quick line at Disney World. I give my consent. I give my consent to be part of the oneness. And as soon as you consent to the freedom, you have it. As soon as you consent to be consciously part of the oneness, you have it. You give your consent. So for this week, let's look at a spiritual practice that we can take with us. I'll just pull up the slide here. There we go. Spirituality is said it's about belonging to something greater than yourself. That is inside the circle. So this week, as you're going about, just take a little heart check every now and then and see, have you stepped into the circle? Did you give your consent to be one? Or did you think, I'm not worthy, and you found yourself outside of the circle? Or I'm not part of it. I am less than, whatever that thought is. And as soon as you find yourself outside of the circle, let's do a little shift here and step right back in. I consent. Can you say that with me? I consent. Yes, I am one. I am one. Okay, so let's take a moment now to celebrate. We're going to celebrate our prosperity. And I'm going to start off first by thanking everybody who continues to support this ministry, this community. It's a wonderful circle of connection, because the ministry is nothing more, nothing less than you and I, all of us standing together in that circle. And we get to share in our oneness, knowing that there are no others. And we do that very concretely by sharing tithes to local organizations, and your choices for this half of the year are Punks with Lunch, working with the homeless people, Arise, working with those who are in recovery from addictions, and the Sunrise Movement that works with our planet Earth. And I know that in your life, you have had blessings this week. Some have been small, but delightful. Some have been huge and overwhelming. Some of them may have passed and only now you're thinking about them. And other ones, maybe you saw this magnificent moon this week and that just made an imprint on your heart. Whatever those blessings are, let's take a moment now to celebrate from within the circle, to celebrate that oneness, that fullness. Celebrate being in the flow, going with the flow, giving up the struggle. If we bless it together, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I praise, give thanks, and am glad. Yes, and so it is. Now we're going to close out our service with our traditional song. For closing, I choose love. I invite you to take the hand next to you, or if no one's next to you, then clap your own hand. Feel the love. Make that choice. Come to the circle. You are one. You are worthy.
Peace in my life is growing because I choose love. Love's always present. It's what I'm made of. I choose love. We are a part of each other. We are one. One tie that binds us, that can't be undone. I choose love. I choose love. Peace in my family is growing because I choose love. choose love. We are a part of each other. We are one. One choice unites us. Let this be the one. I choose love. I choose